Every year since it began back in 2020, the Steam Next Fest has proved an excellent opportunity to show off what indie developers are capable of, while also giving a lot of people an opportunity to check out games they might not otherwise have even known existed, let alone gone out and bought. You could also say that during these past 3 years specifically, the Steam Next Fest has demonstrated by virtue of its existence, and usually lengthy lineup of titles, that while the AAA industry flounders about making vague and insubstantial excuses for why it can't handle the mere idea of continuing production as usual, with most of its developers either working partially or fully from home instead of in a traditional office, indie games meanwhile, including those with a fairly high production quality for their size, seem almost completely unaffected by these mysteriously unidentifiable factors. And indie games generally don't have the AAA franchise advantage of just being able to lazily copy over and reuse hundreds or thousands of existing assets from earlier series entries. But of course you can have as many demos as you like participate in this event, but by the very nature of this limited time frame in which people can download and play these demos before they expire, there's a finite number of games you'll ultimately dip your toes in. So I thought I'd highlight what were some of my favorites this year, starting with Turbo Overkill. Every game, regardless of genre, has to pull people in some specific way. For some games, it's the story or characters. For some, it's the general atmosphere. For Turbo Overkill, it's the inherent dedication to its firm beliefs of diplomacy and pacifism to solve societal issues. To quote the game's Steam description, Turbo Overkill takes over the top to never-before-reached heights. Activate hero time, a new form of slow motion with a twist. Build incredible speed by wall running and dashing, slide on your chainsaw leg, eviscerating foes and opening up bosses for critical damage, and go car surfing on the hoods of flying cars. Blast away with the twin magnums, which lock on and insta-gib several foes, the boomer shotgun and its attached grenade launcher, or the telefrag sniper rifle, which teleports your character inside an enemy before they explode from within. The FPS genre is about to get wild and fun again. And as ever, I won't lie. Based on the handful of levels present in the demo, Turbo Overkill definitely follows through on its promise of going in the wild and fun direction. The problem we otherwise usually see with these Doom and Quake-inspired games or outright clones is that they're usually so completely dependent on the prestige of those earlier games, forming an intense one-way parasitic attachment on those older games' reputations and their fandom, that they usually are completely unable to appeal to anyone else in the broader PC gaming market. Turbo Overkill takes arguably the wiser path of taking influence from a slightly wider array of influences in regards to not only its gameplay but also its art style and world design at large. It also helps that it separates itself from the other aforementioned games, in that it's being developed on an engine that isn't almost 30 years old, but rather the all-too-common Unreal Engine 4. For years now, I found it nothing short of amazing how the overwhelming majority of the gaming industry from the top down, ranging from large-scale AAA studios to smaller AA and even indie developers, have all almost unanimously put their faith in this one single development engine, and how they're all able to use the Unreal Engine 4 toolset to create wildly differing products. And Turbo Overkill is a definite example of this. The game runs really smoothly. Throughout my entire time playing, I never experienced a single technical issue in terms of the optimization. It ran entirely smoothly at a perfect 1080p 60 FPS throughout. Although I did run into a fair number of non-performance related bugs, such as your general run-of-the-mill type game bugs, like hit registration being perhaps a bit too inconsistent, namely with how the slide functions in combat. I had several observable instances where, despite the fact that normally the slide would instantly kill any minor enemy upon hit, sometimes this inexplicably appeared not to take effect. This appears to most often happen in larger consolidated groups, where you would think you could just mow them all down since they're all well within the established hitbox, and yet one or two individual enemies will randomly be unaffected by this. I thought at first maybe they were at the back of the group, maybe the slide is limited in duration, or maybe it can only be activated when on uneven ground, resulting in you slowing down and dealing less damage, perhaps on even ground. But after I began paying close attention to this recurring issue, that too likewise didn't seem to be the root cause. So I really don't know why the movement system is bugging out, but that's worth keeping an eye on moving forward. Also, if we're looking at issues in general worth nitpicking over, I was slightly disappointed with how ineffectual and honestly weak some of the weapons actually were in terms of damage output, despite the sound effects, weapon models, and weapon animations indicating otherwise. Unless you're wielding either the sawed-off shotgun or the dual-wielding minigun, which are both in most instances best reserved for bosses or elite enemies, for most average enemies, it's just far more efficient to just use the rather overpowered slide ability to take them all out at once. The pistol essentially is useless after the first level when you're first given it. Once you have the first opportunity to disregard it, please do so. You'll save yourself later headaches. Likewise, your automatic weapons are a bit too inconsistent and deal minimal damage at any range, whether it be long, medium, or short range. Your weapons do have secondary fire modes that tend to more or less be at least slightly more impactful than the primary fire mode. For the pistol, you have an aimbot gimmick that quickly locks onto all nearby enemies, which can be nice, except the bullets are still normal pistol bullets, meaning in most cases you might as well be tossing warm bread rolls at them for all the good old do. Your shotgun can fire grenades, which is pretty cool, I'll admit, and the list goes on. I also felt that in some areas, especially in the final demo level, certain areas tended to be very maze-like, and without the support of a minimap or any kind of navigational aid, I found myself wandering around in circles trying to figure out where I needed to go next. Just to get ahead of the obvious criticism, no, I don't believe you always need a minimap or a map in your game. But if you're not going to allow the player to access a map themselves in this kind of game, where timed runs are a component, you need to always make it abundantly clear through the map layout and art direction where the player should sprint to, jump to, or wall run to next. This isn't an open world game, this is a single player level specific game. You don't need to appear ashamed of having your game be perceived as linear. To wrap it up on a more positive note, there do seem to be a fair amount of collectibles present here. I'll easily concede that I'm not a collectible hunter myself. In most instances, I don't usually care to seek them out. However, I'm more than happy to pick them up when they, usually accidentally, stumble right into my lap due to me usually getting lost and wandering unintentionally in their direction. Currently, these collectibles are just limited to cassette tapes, and I'm not sure if they even do anything in the current demo, but I hope, for the sake of those who play these kinds of games expecting good collectibles, that the developers add more of this kind of stuff in the full game. After all, it's not exactly difficult to program in collectibles that the player can later view in their inventory. I'd love to see stuff like concept art, weapon design sketches, and maybe some other material granted as collectibles. But I recognize maybe that's just me, I'm fascinated with game development. Maybe since there are cassette tapes, you'll just unlock additional music tracks that you can swap between at will later. That'd be pretty cool too. In any case, definitely double down on this collectibles mechanic in the future. While I enjoyed what this demo had to offer, I do hope that in the final build of the game, the developers somewhat rework the combat to make weapons a tad more essential, rather than allowing you to cheese your way to an easy win by just endlessly sliding. I'm all for allowing the player to play mostly however they want, but if the balance is so hopelessly uneven that you can just insta-kill almost anything with one passive ability, whereas otherwise you'd have to expend hundreds of bullets to alternatively achieve the same effect, then there's something fundamentally wrong with how combat is designed here. And on that somewhat depressing note, that's where I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. As I indicated earlier, this is just a demo and Turbo Overkill does not have a set release date yet, so we're probably looking at a release date closer to the end of this year, if not next year altogether. Personally, I expect we'll probably see this game release well before 2022 comes to an end, based on the fairly far along state it appears to be now, but we're just going to have to wait and see. As ever, if you enjoyed this game, be sure to click the like button and comment below what you think of the game. Comments really help my videos get boosted in the algorithm, and plus I read and respond to nearly all the comments I get, so even if you just want to drop a comment to say hi or get my opinion on something, even if it's unrelated, I'm more than happy to chat with you down below. Likewise, subscribing and clicking the bell really helps. I know it's cliche, no one likes to hear it, but the YouTube algorithm is honestly a pain in the ass to deal with, doubly so if you're a small channel like I am. This is WarriorDan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, stay safe and peace out.